All right, looks like we got at least a bit of the crowd already. So we'll go ahead and get started with our program for today. Um, just quickly, I want to welcome everybody. This is CMAA South Carolina's first webinar for the summer. We have one more coming up next month, but glad everybody could make it to this. And just want to do some quick welcomes and introductions. My name is Josh Gray. I'm the membership director for CMA South Carolina. Excited to have everybody joining us and participating. We're going to have a presentation towards the end. We'll have some Q&A, and we will definitely make a recording of this available to those that couldn't make it today. And also everybody will earn one PDH or CEU. We have this course registered through CMAA National, so we'll follow up and get all the attendees over to them so you guys will get credit for the PDHs. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter, who is in charge of our education at CMA South Carolina, and he's going to introduce our speaker for today's webinar.
Hey everyone, I'm Peter Sheridan. I'm over education and credentialing for the CMAA of South Carolina, and I'm excited.
Whoops. Peter, can you unmute your mic again?
Yeah, can you hear
Sorry.
me now, Josh? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Peter Sheridan with the CMAA South Carolina chapter. I help with credentialing and education, as Josh said. And today I'm excited to introduce Heather Armande, the founder of Pursue Perfection Coaching. Heather's work is especially relevant to us CMAA members because she helps construction and design teams improve communication, collaboration, planning reliability, and project alignment. Her experience across the owner, designer, and contractor side helps the industry gives her a practical understanding of the challenges construction managers face every day. So today, Heather will be speaking a little bit about emotional intelligence and how we can use it to reduce friction, build trust, and lead stronger project teams. Heather, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to you for the webinar. I appreciate it.
Peter, thank you for one. Happy to be here today. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everyone. If you have the ability, I see a few of you have your cameras on. Communication is a whole lot more than just listening to something, and you will, I promise, take a lot more away if you have your cameras on and are engaged. I will kind of stop throughout and ask everybody. We're going to do the simple form of a poll of just raising your actual hand if this is something that you have experienced or no. So a little bit more about myself. As Peter said, I've got 19 years experience. For the last 19 years, I've been in the construction industry. I started on the design side. 2008, everything kind of crashed. Kind of caused me to shift directions and take a pulse of, is this really what I want to do? And went back and got my master's in construction management from the University of Oklahoma. I'm born and raised in Oklahoma, and I'm back here now. I've worked on construction projects across the country, California, Arizona, all over. And I've also been on the owner side. I worked for a large healthcare organization, managing capital construction projects and also implementing lean implementation at an organizational level. For the last almost 3 years, October it'll be 3 years, I have gone out on my own because I wanted to be able to help more people learn how to make teams more collaborative, how to improve the success of projects. And we focus on the schedule, we focused on the cost, but it's really a human business, and it's communication and it's connection at a human level. And that's really what we're going to talk about more today. And so my My why, if you're familiar with that, is to help and inspire people so they feel empowered to achieve positive change. And then I'm going to talk a little bit later around strengths-based leadership and the value that that can provide to project teams and individuals. My top 5 strengths, if you are familiar with Gallup Strengths Assessment, are restorative. I love to make things better, which lean is continuous improvement. Woo is winning others over. It's hard to ask people to change and people are resistant to change. So my woo strength allows me to go and get people energized and make it personal. Why should they take the time to try this new thing or do something hard and different and change from what they've been doing for so long? Communication. I love to share my information and speak with other people. Positivity. I'm always seeing that maybe we had an issue on the project, but it could always be worse. And then input is I love to learn new things, and that's what I'm going to bring some of that information and my learning to you today. The purpose for today is to have a better understanding. I want you guys to walk away with understanding what is emotional intelligence. How does it play out in my personal life, and how do we see it playing out on projects that we want to be more intentional around and learning some ways to be more proactive around emotional intelligence and those 5 categories. We're going to talk about how trust and a lack of trust and communication affects the outcomes of projects. I'm sure with this group that you see that all the time. And I've heard so many say, we did all this IFOA or IPD projects, and some go really well and others don't. And what is that piece? Why is it that some do and some don't? And I think trust and communication are big pieces of that. And emotional intelligence can really help you with improving that trust and having a better understanding around it. Applying those emotional intelligent behaviors to manage the tension and the challenges that we face on construction projects. And then we're going to talk about how team dynamics and tools like strengths-based leadership and Genius Spark can help support project teams. So I want to start with a story. My grandfather was 92 when he passed, and he always had a golden rule marble in his pocket. And one of the last meals we were together, we were playing this game, and the question that he got was, what's the most important life lesson? And he pulls out of his pocket his golden rule marble, and he says, actually comically, he's like, I haven't lost my marbles. And this was at 92. And then he said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The golden rule. And he gave all of us in our family a golden rule. He was always passing these out to people. And that's what we all want to do, right? We want to treat others the way they want to be treated. And that's the intention that we show up with. But how does that intention show up when we encounter the high pressures, the challenges of construction, that the contracts are set up to remove all trust. The expectations are unclear and constantly changing. People feel blamed. We push risk down to the next level of person. And there's so many different ways of communicating that aren't always clear. And we think we've had effective communication. I often say with projects, how do we relate it more to sports? And after COVID, we all experienced how teams performed when they didn't have a good preseason, when they didn't have team building and alignment, and they weren't a cohesive team. They didn't perform as well. So We always try to do that similar preseason. We do a kickoff meetings, right? We do trust exercises, team alignment. But on construction projects, that team is constantly changing. We have new people come in and go, and we don't always come back to, hey, has the team changed enough that we need to talk more about the culture and the goals and who we are as a team? So quick question for you guys. How often do you have a kickoff on your projects? Raise your hand, you have one often. Got 1, 2, okay, maybe a third of you guys. Occasionally, but it's not common. It happens if the owner asks for it. Yep, okay. And don't really have a kickoff. Raise your hand. Okay. Often I see teams, hey, we had this kickoff meeting, we've got trust, let's just go. And then we get into the throes of construction and it's business as usual. We start off with this kickoff and the energy and then pressure. And then trades come in and we've got changes or there's one challenge after another. And then that energy reduces. And then everybody starts to, that trust dissolves. And we start to revert back to our contracts and our protecting our own entity and self-preservation. Emotional intelligence is how do we practice that respect and that trust. So now I want you guys to, let's talk about what is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize what is happening in yourself, recognize what may be happening in others, and choose a response that helps the situation instead of making it worse. Basically, it's not being so reactive. And the 5 components are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So the three, you choose your response. And then is this going to move the situation forward? But you also have to notice what's happening in yourself and how are you reacting, your tone, your body motions, what's going on within others. It's that reading the room, which often we're so focused on, I've got this task or this challenge, and I'm going to focus on that, and not about how is it impacting others or what we're saying that's impacting others. So let's dive a little more into those 5 components. Self-regulation, recognizing your emotions and strengths. Example, okay, that story. Who here's seen Office Space? That opening scene, right? Stuck in traffic. Do we realize stressed we get because we're stuck in traffic and we see the lane moving really fast next to us, and then we move over? That's that self-awareness, is recognizing in the moment when something is stressful, how are we feeling, what's going on. That self-regulation is managing the reactions or the response with someone else. I kind of call this, I think about this with, I have 9-year-old twin girls, and I'm you know, trying to order dinner. Never fails, we go to dinner and I'm trying to order, and I tell them every single time, don't interrupt when I'm trying to order the food because I'm trying to finish a thought. Never fails. Mommy, 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 right? So that self-regulation is, how do we not yell at our kids in that moment and take a breath and slow down? And I'm going to go into some stories for our projects as well, but I just want you guys to really get, what are these 5 components of emotional intelligence? Empathy is understanding others' feelings or perspective. It's not just, well, my intention was this, but how did it make them feel? How did it affect them? And then social skills, building that trust, the communication, and being able to work well with others. So self-awareness, how am I showing up? When I was on the owner side, we were doing this dialysis unit renovation project, and I had come from the general contractor side, and one day the contractor asked me to go to lunch, and I feel like you don't trust me. It's like, what? Well, you're always challenging or asking questions, and I feel like you don't trust me. What did I do to erode that trust? And it gave me a realization. I was treating him the same way I'd been conditioned to treat trade partners. Trust but verify. I'm not going to listen to I'm not going to take their word on anything. I want them to show the proof, and I want them to, you have to, trust is earned. And seeing him not used to experiencing that kind of treatment from an owner, he challenged it. He asked about it. But our trade partners have also been conditioned to be treated that way. And think about how that affects the project. If, you know, is there information that they're withholding or not providing because, well, they're not going to believe what I say anyways. I'm just going to let it play out, and then they'll see, then they'll know. But it was a big aha moment for me that my intention was not to distrust him, but it was how I'd been conditioned. And I was also just trying to get information that I could run up the pole on the owner side to do my job. And our relationship got a lot better after that point. And I'm glad and thankful that he had the ability to ask me that question and to have that conversation. So my intent wasn't to distrust him. It was just the way I'd been conditioned, the way we operate. What are some other ways? Think about, how do we operate? How we've been conditioned? And what are the outcomes for that? So some things you can do is name your intent. I'm asking about this schedule to understand the risk. It's not that I don't trust you. How can, providing more background around the questions to get clear, what information are you trying to get from people, or what's the intent of that? Number 2 was self-regulation. There's all this urgency on projects. The owner, funding, the end use of the project. A lot of times owners, maybe the only project they're building in the history of their company. And then there's from the architect side of making sure that they're getting everything from the engineers and all the different pieces. Did they truly understand the needs and wants of the owners. There's so many pieces around that. Well, then you've got contractors and the pricing challenges that come along with that. Trade partners, it's do your job, but also can I get pricing on this? Or what about this change? Or what's the status of this material? Submittals, RFIs. There's so much going on that creates pressure and constant challenges. Knowing how to manage those, that is the managing those impulses, and not, we often transfer that pressure down to the next person. Oh, I'm not sure about this price, so I'm going to put it onto the trade contractor to give me that price or that schedule, and then I can blame it on them. How many are familiar with the what if scenarios, right? Well, the owner's asking, what if we did this, or what if we changed that? I experienced that when I was on the owner side. We were building a 8-story bed tower. And right before the crane was coming, they were about to order the crane and finalize that piece. All of a sudden, our C-suite started going, well, what if we added 2 more floors or 4 more floors just from a structural standpoint that we could build out later, because we've only got funding for this. And they kept asking, what if scenarios, what if scenarios? And finally, the contractor came to us and said, where's the priority in this? Because we can't do this job and constantly price all these other things. It's giving confusion to everybody. What's the direction? Where is this coming from? And so clearly, maybe let's take a step back, and we look at on those what if scenarios. Where is this coming from? What's the intent? Are we clear on the priorities? Have the priorities changed? The owner wasn't trying to be hard or difficult. They didn't know the burden of their requests and their asks. So what are some strategies? Some warning signs: breaking ground without decisions creates chaos later. How often do we, as contractors, well, we want to please the owner, we want to show them progress, so we're going to show up on the site and we're just going to put a trailer out there, put a fence up, we're working. And more often than not, I hear from project team after project team after project team, that cost us so much, but we do it over and over and over. And maybe some of those correct self-regulation responses would be maybe not yet, or not without knowing why are we stopping, or where are we stopping? What's the information that we have today or that we need to move forward? Too often, I think some of the challenges in our industry is the inability to say no. Our owners reps, our architects don't want to say no to the owner. Contractors don't want to say no on the way to the architect or the owner as well. And our trade partners don't want to say no because, well, I'm afraid I'm going to be replaced. But even when work is so busy and we have more work than we can have the capacity to do, we still don't say no. We still don't stop and push back. And maybe it's not just a no, it's a no, but what? I need more information. And why is this a priority? What are the priorities? Instead of that, I need that pricing ASAP. Before we price this, what decisions do we need to make? What information do we need to get that pricing? and thinking about, we're translating that pressure into clarity, or are we just passing it down? Number 3 is motivation. So with this, I'm going to again give an example on the owner side. So that dialysis project I referred to a little while ago, well, it was an enabling project for our PICU. We were building an entirely new pediatric intensive care unit. And because they were so reliant, the schedule just, one project has issues and delays, pushes and crunches the schedule. We're all familiar with that. Finally, the contractor came to me and was like, why is this schedule so critical? You just keep adding more stuff and the date doesn't change. What's with this deadline and this date? And I didn't start on the project, so I didn't have the understanding of what had happened in the past. But at that moment, I realized they didn't understand the purpose and the mission of this project and why that date was so critical. And how often do we just dive into the mechanics of building without knowing what is this project for and who is it going to serve? Why are these dates so critical? Well, the dates were so critical because we had to finish that PICU project before August, because in August is when kids go back to school and cold and flu season begins. And the previous year, there were not enough beds to care for all of the sick kids during cold and flu season. And we had to turn away sick kids. And as the largest level 1 trauma center in the state, we wanted to have more beds to be able to care for more patients. When the project team understood what that date was about, all of a sudden, our mission, our alignment, the motivation changed, and everybody got around, we're going to make this happen. We're going to do what it takes. The projects you're working on right now, are you clear on the purpose and the mission? Yes? No? Okay. If you're not clear, are your trades clear? The ones putting that work into place, making that difference every day on that project? When the why is clear, the team owns how are we going to do this, and the purpose changes. Component 4 is empathy. How do we put ourselves in someone else's shoes to understand what their challenges are? And for this example, on the contractor side, we had this one owner we worked for on lots of projects that owned multiple car dealerships. So for this particular project, we were building a new Audi. And if you're not familiar with the car dealerships, they've got, their owner is the car manufacturer, Audi, for this example. And they've got to meet all these requirements. They've got to update their dealerships to meet the brand standard, or they don't get basically paid. They lose a huge part of their commission if their dealership or their showroom is not meeting that brand standard. So this project they'd waited till the point that they were about to hit that deadline, that they were not going to be compliant, and they were going to lose a huge percentage of their profits. So the schedule was tight, and then there were so many changes. And we just kept hearing change from the architect, change from the architect, change from the architect. And somebody's like, oh, what, did the owner go on a vacation and all of a sudden they saw this Italian marble that they really liked and that's what they want to put in, right? We hear that all the time. Oh, please don't let the owner go visit something and see something because they're going to change their mind. Well, actually, when this project was being built, Audi was in the transition of updating their standards and their brand standards and the requirements of this finish or these materials and different things. So the owner wanted to make sure that when they finished this project, not only was it finished in the date so they got their commission, but also they didn't want to finish it and then immediately not be compliant with the new brand standard. So we quickly realized if we just take a step back and understand what they're trying to do, then we can communicate more effectively. Here's the information we need right now because this is what we're working on. And then at this point, we need this decision at that last responsible moment so that we can keep the project moving forward. Or is the priority for us to slow down? And, where is that priority? Is it budget that we're going to bring in more people, or we're going to go to 2 shifts? Or is it the quality piece? Or is it making sure that you have that end product, but still meeting that deadline? What are those goals? Clearly more understanding where the other person is coming from. So question for you guys, when stakeholders change direction, I want you to think about what story does your team first tell, or what do you first think about? What's the story in your head? You want to jot that down when we do the Q&A, or if you want to unmute here. What is that story? Because I saw a whole bunch of head shakes. So to get in, go ahead. Yes. Was there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure it's the indecisiveness is the first thing that reaches into many people's heads first, but in many situations, there are also underlying factors that we're not aware of.
Yep. We're going to talk about that indecisiveness here with as I get into Genius Spark. Before we get into the last component of emotional intelligence, one of the tools that I have found so valuable with teams is Genius Spark. And it is a tool that is used that takes the Gallup Strengths Assessment. So Don Clifton, 30 years ago, had this hypothesis. He thought there was a common strength that all successful people had. So we went around and interviewed all of these highly successful people. What he found was that there's actually 34 character strengths. And they didn't all have the same strengths. What they had was they were aware of their strengths and they were leveraging them. The assessment that was then created is, in the psychology world, one of the most recognized assessments because it's how you are naturally wired, how your brain is wired. I showed you mine and I kind of went over those top 5. Well, it's no wonder that I implement lean and continuous improvement, and I'm a coach and a trainer because that uses all of those 5 strengths. Most people focus on, what am I not good at? I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail in front of others, and I don't want to make a mistake. So I'm going to try to fix and work on those things I'm not good at, right? When have you ever heard an NFL quarterback say, I'm not a good kicker. I need to practice my kick? No, because they know what their strengths are and they're going to focus on those strengths. And that's what the Gallup Strengths Assessment and then Genius Spark helps you do for yourself and for your project teams. helps you become aware of what are your top strengths. So it's broken up into 4 quadrants. You have motivating, acting. It's all about action. So it's how do you act with belief and discipline and focus. Thinking, it's all the analytical. If you're more the introvert, you are always in your head. I'm looking at the context of a situation, or futuristic, strategic, learner, arranger, deliberative, okay? Relating is empathy. We talked about empathy, right? Well, empathy is, of the 34 strengths, it's 28th on mine. It doesn't mean that I don't understand or have empathy for someone who's going through a tragic situation. But when we're talking about these blue relating strengths, you take on that. You know, those people that just have this sixth sense. If you have empathy as one of your top strengths, you feel the stress and the frustration in the room. When there's conflict, you leave those meetings exhausted. You walk away with those feelings. Whatever that person is feeling, you feel it almost equally, and you keep it with you. We kind of joke, if you have empathy, either you have pets or what's your favorite bar, because there's got to be a way for you to decompress and let off those emotions that you take on from other people. So those are the 4 quadrants. And what I have seen is that teams or companies will interview and hire and bring on people who have similar strengths as them. They get along well, but then they're missing. What are they missing to have a balanced team? So let's talk about how would you use this with a team? Well, we develop it, we put it all together, and then we look at, as a whole team collectively, how do we leverage the strengths instead of you're in this role and you're in that role? Hey, you've got analytical. You dive into all the details and the specs because you're going to just love that world. And I'm going to be the relating person. I'm going to go talk to the owner and make sure that they're feeling like they're heard and that they're connected and things are going well. So what happens when those strengths collide? You had said the first thing that we say is the owner is indecisive and they're changing their mind, right? So what are the stories that we're saying around these strengths? So Jennifer here, she's a powerhouse, is her archetype. And her number 1 strength is activator. She's a go and do and action, and it's momentum, and she's going to move things forward. Kevin, on the other hand, he's a servant leader, is his archetype, which I didn't get into. He's more analytical. He's going to sit back and think. He wants to make sure that we're making the right decision before jumping. So how do those 2 conflict? Well, these are 2 real life story. The C-suite for one of my clients, I did this within their executive team, and they immediately said, we want to roll this out to each one of our different departments. And Kevin is head of legal, and Jennifer is head of HR. And I paired them up, all the different executive teams, based on their strengths and the collisions that happen within those strengths. Kevin calls me up before he's supposed to meet with Jennifer, and he's like, who told you to pair us up? Did somebody tell you there's an issue, that we're not working well together? I said, no, Kevin. I said, but your strengths and her strengths are naturally, they collide. So you're feeling it apparently. How about we develop some agreements so that we can move past that story that we're saying, where Jennifer says, man, Kevin just cannot make a decision. He's slowing me down. He's dragging us. He's the weight dragging us down. And Kevin, she is so reactive. She makes a decision and moves, before we've got clear understanding, and doesn't even care about what happens when we make that decision and the downfall. So instead, let's change that. And the better story is Kevin is protecting decisions and quality. So what he needs from Jennifer is he needs more information and clear understanding of what's the decision that needs to be made. She needs to ask, what information do you need from me so that you can feel comfortable and we can move forward? And then Jennifer needs to understand where he's coming from and the analytical side. What is he saying that she's not? And when he would give more information or ask more questions, she would feel like he didn't trust her. But really, he's just trying to get more information so he can have those thoughts. And that happens every day. And that's where this strengths assessment really helps teams understand those natural strengths and then how those often collide. The other piece to it is the app helps you draft in one paragraph. How do you show up at your best? How do you over leverage those strengths? And they become your kryptonite and they get in the way. One of the CFO for this company, command was one of her strengths. So she walks into the room in a meeting and it comes across as my way or the highway. But that's not how she wants to be. She wants her team to challenge her. She wants her team to ask questions. But until we had this language and they understood that that's how she was coming across, they're not going to ask the boss, CFO, a question when she walks into the room with command. Yes, sir, boss. And now they've got a better relationship. They can challenge and ask those questions, and the outcomes have improved significantly. So those strengths become friction when we don't understand the need behind it. Under pressure, where do you fall? Are you a push for action person? Hold on, let's get more clarification. Are you that analytical person that's going to step back and process and think about things? Do you focus on the risk? Are you that emotional side, that relating side where you can feel and try to get everyone calm? Or are you those challenging those assumptions? Self-awareness, which we talked about, is the prerequisite for reading the room and having that understanding. Building those working agreements early helps strengthen what does this person naturally bring? What strength do they bring? What do they need to do their work best? Where are the friction that might show up? What agreements or micro agreements that we can come to mitigate or prevent those from happening? And another easy way of doing that is having writing your own personal, this is who I am. And having everybody on your team, this is what I need. This is how I function best. This is how I prefer to communicate. When I'll work with a team, that's one of the first questions I ask, because communication is hard. What's your preferred method of communication? Some people call me. Some people are text. Some people say email. Well, email, that's where things go to die in my world. I hate email. But if we just came together and asked that one simple question, what is your preferred method of communication? If you ask that to the architect and you really are trying to get answers, isn't that your customer? And if you communicate in their preferred method, do you think that's going to go a little better? So I want you to stop and think of a current or a recent project. And why does this project matter? This project matters because that's how you get people to get aligned. Know what their hard work and extra effort is protecting. I want to wrap up by the 5 components. Self-awareness. Check your intent versus the impact. What is your intent? Is your intent to get clarity around the schedule, to get answers? What is your intent by your questions? And communicating that so it's not misread as mistrust. Self-regulation. It translates pressure into clarity if we ask questions in a better way and we use no. When we communicate, your actions are having this impact. Is that okay? Do we need to make adjustments and change? The patient tower, which it's really interesting. If you're on if anybody's here in healthcare, on the contractor side or in the construction side, we call it a patient tower, or we call it a bed tower, right? How many beds and there's rooms. If you're on the owner side, those aren't beds. Those are patients. Those are people. Just that little switch can make that difference of that motivation. It's not a bed tower. It's a patient tower. It's all about people and connecting with the team, and that we're all human and we all show up to do a good job, but our strengths are all different. Empathy and identifying the hidden pressure that's driving that difficult behavior. Why are they acting the way they're acting? Did they have a bad experience before? Was their last project everything that they proceeded without documentation, and they didn't get paid, and that agreement was not held up? So now they are, nope, need it signed, need it finalized. And then social skills, turning the personality friction into explicit work agreements. Some great ways to manage that and to understand how things are going is having a dashboard. Where do we feel that the trust is on this project? We often would have monthly surveys that would go out anonymously to our trades, our owner, and in-house team, so that people could see, is there an issue with trust? Is there stress? Okay, well, what's causing that stress? What do we need to do with that? Reliability. How's everybody feel? Are we making our commitments? Are we keeping our promises? Because we all know the impact of that. But we all see things, and the industry is not an industry of data. It is reacting and acting in the moment and not yet that are called leading indicators that know where we're headed so we can make adjustments or improve before we look at the lagging indicators. The schedule, is it on or off? Well, at that point, there's not a lot you can do. Or the budget. That money's already been spent and things are moving forward. So is that the best indicator of how things are going on the project? And then over time, watching to see, how are we doing? Are we improving on our trust? Is stress going up or down? You guys want to see some more? I've got lots of examples of some dashboards and some polls that I've done with project teams. But the team health reveals that story before we get to those schedule matrix. walking the project site, are the porta potties, are they clean? Are they dirty and they've got writing all over them? I'm guessing there's a lot of stress and there's no trust. We don't walk a project and look at what are the nonverbal communication and actions that are happening that tell us how things are going. How do people feel? Is there people, trades not showing up? Well, is the atmosphere so stressful and so negative that they just don't want to come to work? Because it's probably not that they don't want a paycheck. Some questions that you can ask any project. Are people, do they feel like they can speak up safely? And that's where that survey really helps because it's anonymous. Are problems visible early? Taking a look at those problems of what we're seeing. Hey, there's absenteeism. We're not getting answers like we need to. Are crews waiting or searching for? Is there lots of rework going on? One project, we started calculating the total cost of that rework. And all of a sudden, the changes slowed down and stopped. And the rework almost cut in half. But we don't look at the full cost, the total numbers for each of those trades and everyone else. We look at our cost as the project manager, but not the total cost. Is the team blaming people's, or are they improving that system? I started with talking about trust, and that elephant in the room is always trust. If people don't feel safe, bad news travels slowly. And any kind of metrics or thing that we're trying to measure, to understand, just looks like a scorecard and a grade. If you've done lean and last planner system and PPC, it's not a grade, it's information for us to understand where can we improve. So with the little bit of time we've got left, some things to think about. Where is pressure being transferred instead of clarified on your site? And just I wanted you to have these to kind of take away. Do we have, but I want to open up for some questions.